A few years ago, my wife received tickets for us to attend a masquerade ball hosted in her hometown benefiting a foundation. At the time she received them and first mentioned the opportunity, I was hesitant about attending. I'm not a particularly social person, and the thought of going to a fancy dress party dressed to the nines seemed a little extreme to me. However, those opportunities didn't come around every day, and the wife was very persuasive, telling me that I should go regardless of how I felt. So we made plans to attend. In the days and weeks before the party, my wife and I made all sorts of plans so that we would look our best during the event. We went and rented a full tuxedo for me. My wife ordered an expensive and beautiful ball gown. She did up her hair and jewelry, and I cleaned up well myself. It was probably the greatest example I can think of where I looked and felt at my best. Handsome, sophisticated, important. Why, I truly believe I could have stepped in for James Bond for a day and no one would have known the difference. Though it probably wasn't the case, my wife and I felt, even for a night, like we were VIPs, and that we were the envy of everyone around us. Too often, this is how we attempt to live our everyday lives. We seek to make sure that the things that we post on social media, how we present ourselves around others, and how we communicate our thoughts and emotions to those we know set us up to look our best. The thought of others seeing us for our faults, mistakes, failures, and low points instead of our successes is a devastating thought that can strike fear into even the most proud individual among us. How many times have you been asked by a friend, family member, or coworker the question, "How are you doing?" and just responded with a simple "fine" or "I'm alright," when everything inside of you is screaming to say the opposite? The truth is, we'd rather suffer in silence sometimes and keep our dignity and perception of having things under control together than to experience healing, humility, and growth by being vulnerable with others. Earlier, when I was considering what to write about, a question came into my mind: what are you afraid of? It seems like such an innocent question at first, but when you really start to ponder it and search your heart for the answer, some deep concepts start to unveil themselves. If someone were to ask you that question, such as a friend, you may answer with something innocuous like spiders or the dark or heights. But my hope is that we may consider that those things that drive our actions, thought processes, and motivations instead. The example that I gave about the masquerade ball demonstrates one of my great fears in life, which you may also find that you share as well, even if you won't admit it to others, which is my perception to others. My whole life I've sought to achieve success and place myself in the minds of others as a person who is mentally strong, kind, wise, and generous. In order to make this perception a reality, I have to make sure that the mistakes or failures that I make would go against this perception or never make it to the light of day. So if I have a day where I am struggling with my self-worth, I'm angry at my neighbor or having a marital issue, my desire to have others perceive me as someone who has everything together and strong outweighs my perceived need for help, and as a result, I just suffer in silence. While this is one example of a fear that we may have, we could probably name 100 others that we could list off as well. Not having enough, being alone in life, losing a relationship, not being able to continue a style of living, not achieving your goals. The list could go on, but they all fall under one major heading: selfishness. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Now, that seems a little extreme to say, don't you think? You're telling me that I'm being selfish because I have a fear of being alone in life? How much more insensitive can you be? To be honest, if I were in your shoes, I would be quick to anger as well. But I want you to consider something before you make too quick of a judgment. The reason why we are afraid to share our innermost fears and insecurities with others is because we are fearful of how others will respond. The selfishness comes from the fact that by our actions we are showing that we ultimately only care about ourselves. Will that family member think less of me or cast me away if I were to share this with them? Can I trust my friend to keep this private just between the two of us? Will others think I'm a weirdo or a freak because I struggle with this issue? We're afraid to share even with those who are closest to us because inside we long to keep the status quo of our relationships and perceptions at a particular benchmark. Let me give you another personal example. My wife and I have been married now for almost 8 years, and there are certain topics of discussion that we mutually understand are difficult to talk about, even after this great length of time together. My wife knows that if she shares stories about work or some other daily matter that she wants to complain about, that I'll just try to find the bright spot in, just as I know that if I share details about a spontaneous purchase or an idea, that it probably won't go over well. We also understand that we have individuals in our lives that we look to for wisdom and are content to allow each other to seek them out instead of each other when push comes to shove. This isn't because we don't like each other or don't respect each other's opinions. It's just a tendency that we allow to occur because we want to achieve our benchmarks. Now, I'll be completely honest. In my mind, this makes perfect sense, because I don't want to let my wife down or share some things that'll make her think less of me. But as a result, I'm letting one of the most important relationships in my life operate at a level that is far less than it could be. Instead of seeking help, wisdom, and healing from my wife, who I know loves me unconditionally, who's committed to seeking my best, and who knows me intimately, I choose to pass up on those opportunities so that she can perceive me as a husband who has everything together, who never struggles, and who can lead our family with no issues, when that is far from the case. This is a perfect example of how our relationship with the Lord may look like as well. When we're fearful or experiencing trials or struggling with a situation, instead of reaching out to the Lord, who we know loves us unconditionally, has our best in mind, and who has the strength, wisdom, and forgiveness to help us through it, we tend to look to ourselves or others for that strength instead. If I would just come humbly before the Lord and admit my fears and failures, I know that He would forgive and strengthen me, but my pride tells me that I can solve my own issues if I just try hard enough, or that I don't really need help unless I absolutely need it. So I just keep God in the back of my mind as a lifeline, so to speak. But really, I've got it under control. In Matthew 23, 27 through 28, Jesus says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of dead man's bones and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." I remember reading this passage over a few times and immediately trying to justify myself that was not true about my own life, but ultimately having to be honest and recognizing that the hypocrisy and wickedness he describes, I can also see rearing its ugly face in my life at times as well. How many times have I tried to make myself look like a whitewashed tomb to those around me, looking beautiful and spotless, when inside I'm struggling with sin and fear? How many times have I given wisdom and advice to others when I could have used that wisdom or advice for my own life and my own circumstances? How many times have I placed my perception over my relationship with the Lord? If we're honest, this is a massive issue that we're dealing with. The good news is that the Lord is patient, kind, and forgiving in all of His ways. That problem you're dealing with right now that you're too afraid to share with anyone, God knows exactly what it is and how it's going to turn out for your good. That marital issue or relationship you're afraid to deal with, He understands what you're going through, and He will give you the strength to overcome it. That empty feeling inside you have been trying to fill with possessions, achievements, or experiences, the Lord wants to show you how He and only He can satisfy your weary soul. Though we are often tempted to think the Lord is quick to anger and disappointment with us when we struggle or fail because those around us act that way, He is so much greater in His love and graciousness than we could ever imagine. To the individual who is afraid and are having trouble waiting for a relationship, job, or situation to come to them like you've been praying desperately for, take comfort in God's promise in Isaiah 40:31. "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." To the individual who is afraid that they are alone in life and that nobody cares about them, take comfort in Isaiah 41:10. "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." To the individual who is afraid that the sin and baggage they carry are unforgivable and are too afraid to seek help for fear of judgment, take comfort in 2 Chronicles 7:14. "If my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. The truth is, with the Lord at our side, we do not have to be afraid. The longer we attempt to make things work ourselves and hold on to fears and insecurities, the longer we choose to live our lives below the potential the Lord has for us. It's a difficult thing to do, to humble yourself, admit your faults, and seek wisdom, healing and forgiveness from the Lord, others, and even ourselves. But you'd be surprised at the freedom and peace that can come as a result of it. Always remember that the Lord loves you and is ready and willing to lead you through all of life's battles if you look to Him. Today is the day to finally share your fears, tear down the walls of our perfection perceptions, and to allow the Lord to provide the healing for your soul and the strength to push you through any and all of life's trials.